Well, hello and welcome to the exciting series. And aren't we fortunate that as Ghana is approaching 60, we are very fortunate to have Professor H.B. Matheson to spare his time with us and educate us the intricacies of African political history. And indeed, it has caught on very well, and thank you for all the comments and reviews that you have been bringing. Well, my name is Nana Sakwa, the fourth Chief of Akomu Edumasa, and also your host and a proud presenter of this particular series, if I may say. Now, for those of you who may have missed the last two episodes, you may want to know who Professor H.B. Matheson is. Well, he's a thought leader, an expert in Pan-Africanism, Ghana political history, African historical studies, slavery, and conflict resolution in Africa. He is an author of 20 books, consultant, speaker, and excellent research fellow. He is a key stakeholder in the W.E.B. Du Bois Center in Ghana, West Africa, and one of the leading researchers in the world of Pan-Africanism. Professor H.B. Matheson is on top of his league. He is one of the foremost and recognized authorities in Pan-Africanism and Ghana political history. And he specializes in lecturing and educating others to know the true and deep history that Ghana and Africa has, which has yet to be told to the world. His technique of teaching and insights have been proven to be effective and applauded by thousands of attendees to his lectures and shows on radio and television, just like he's appearing now. I'm going to take a break, and then when I come back, we'll start talking about Ghana's political history. We started all the way back from 1947. I hope you haven't missed. If you have, the previous recordings are on YouTube. But stay right there. Don't touch the remote. We're coming back. Well, thank you very much for staying, and I know you've been anticipating, you've been waiting for this, and I am too. With me is, I don't think he needs introduction now, Professor H.B. Matheson. Prof, thank you very much, and you're welcome.
It's my pleasure, Nana.
Well, the last two programs have been very, very insightful, and today we are looking at the Second Republic from 1969 to 1972, and then we look at the Liman era, 26th September 1979 to 31st December 1981. And you'll be amazed about some of the in-depth details about our own country which we have missed. But Prof, what we couldn't do the other time because of time was we were not able to sort of have a summary closure, looking at the NLC, SRC, SMC, PNDC, sort of just close it off, then we move into the Second Republic. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you very much, Nana. Nana, but before I go on, as a Pan-Africanist and a Pan-Ghanaian nationalist, you and I collectively would like to wish all Pan-Ghanaian nationalists and ex-servicemen. Today is the 69th anniversary of the ex-servicemen, crossroads, Christianborg crossroads, debacle, 28th February. So we wish everyone, more especially the families of Sergeant Ajiti, Corporal Atipo, and Private Odante Wellington.
And the unidentified civilian.
And the unidentified civilian, which has not been identified up to today. Well, Nana, thanks so much once more for reminding me. As we said last time, military dictatorship in Ghana actually commands from that period or the political epoch of Nkrumah, 1966. And as I stipulated here in the studios here, this coup was, specialized in the sense that it was conceived externally, prepared externally, and finally executed locally by the CIA their collaborators like Mossad. And I gave a reference as an academic material. One will not just speak out of vacuum, but you have to give reference. And our reference was John Stockwell stroke Philip Agee in their famous book, In Search of Enemies, the Ghana Case Study. And that was 1978, published in Abidjan, page 121, 125. Good. So here, this coup, as I stipulated earlier, was externally patronized. Now, that of the 1972 one was a champion. A champion stipulated, among other things, that yes, he came in to overthrow the late, Professor K.B. Busia, in the sense that Kofi Busia was overthrown because a champion, stipulated that their meager budget of 40 million Ghana cedis was drastically reduced by, Busia by 50%. Also, Busia, as the then commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, refused to consult army chiefs when he was taking the decision, even when the decision concerned or was something in the interest of the armed forces. Military chiefs were no more consulted. So this was one of the reasons, given by a champion. Now, in the case of Rawlings' first coup, that is 1979, that one was an uprising. It was a debacle between the junior officers and the senior officers. The junior officers and the men in the army had something, to solve. And that brought, the overtaking or the overthrow of the SMC-2. Now, PNDC, that is Rawlings' overthrow of the Limam, regime, was something already inbuilt in the sense that the center of the PNP, that is the People's National Party of Dr. Hilary Limam, could no more who. What do I mean by that, Nana? Here, the main apparatchiki of the regime, like Ekodanias, who was in charge of the Chief Justice and Attorney General, had resigned. Karendorf had resigned, Minister of Interior. And also, there was this aspect of Limanization of the party, quote and unquote. What do I mean by that? Here, Hilary Limam, together with certain groups, supported whatever Limam said. Mumuni Bawumia and his group also supported the political philosophy of Osagyefo. John Hanson, for instance, with Mumuni Bawumia.
Oh, you didn't say Liman was an Nkrumahist?
Liman was an Nkrumahist, but Liman failingly failed to uphold Nkrumahism. And if we come to discuss, Limam's regime, you will see that something happened.
Okay, let me let you sum up and then we'll come back to the...
So here, the 31st December Revolution, as Rawlings himself, the chief architect, baptized it, was something which had already been started within the Politburo, that is the center of Limam's PNP. The center could no more hold. So Rawlings seized the opportunity to come in as, a Praetorian revolutionarist, as a coupist, as a coup maker. And that gave Liman the lead chance.
We missed out on Akufu, General Akufu.
General Akufu one was a palace coup. So it cannot be classified as a coup d'etat. Okay. Why? Because a champion by 5th July 1978 was ostracized from the army. A champion was found back because of his, gov and so many, cases against him. So, Akufo, that is General F.W.K. Akufo, being the number 2 person, seized the opportunity. Of course, he was not the strong man. The strong man was Odate Wellington, who first and foremost ostracized, the majors who supported, Achampong, Major Agbo, Selomi, and Nkrumah Ba. These were the three, I call them, the three, quote and unquote, the three musketeers. The Union Tex, quote and unquote. They assisted, Achampong. So when these people were ostracized, Achampong became weak. And finally, he himself was forced to go. So FWK Akufo's coup d'etat, that is from SMC1 to SMC2, cannot be classified among a standing coup d'etat in Ghana.
Change of leadership.
It was a police coup. That is change of leadership, as you appropriately said.
That basically sums up our military era. So then moving on to this week's discussion, then we want to look at, as you were saying, that the NLC, handed over to K.A. Busia on a silver platter. What does it mean when you say that?
Now, thank you for this question. Yes, within the limits of historical antecedents, so far as Ghana political history is concerned, here, Nkrumah, as we had already illustrated, was not the darling boy of the West. Nkrumah, as a staunch Pan-Africanist, as a socialist, the Western world found out that at all costs, Nkrumah should be overthrown. And they attempted so many times. In fact, Nana, let me put on record, the first coup d'etat in modern times should have happened 1961. And that was, they were looking at for General Michel, the one who was in charge of the Air Force. That is why we have Michel Camp. He was the darling boy. Unfortunately, he died mysteriously in an air disaster. So the Western world, had to reschedule their plan vis-a-vis coup d'etat against, Nkrumah. Good. Why do I say that? The NLC, that is the National Liberation Council of Kotoka/Afrifa, that is the Devoyekaism, the duo of these two people, they handed in the silver platter to Busia. Why? Here was Busia, who was in exile. Busia went to exile through Côte d'Ivoire, and we'll come to it. Here, we may recall, Nana, as I stipulated in these studios, Dr. J.P. Dankwa, who was the leader of opposition to Nkrumah during the epoch of Nkrumah, survived in the then Legislative Assembly, present-day National Assembly, Parliament, between 1951-54. J.P. Dankwa lost his seat. First ruler member Akim Abakwa to his relation Aaron Oforiatta on the CPP bench. And incidentally, Pauli William Oforiatta, who was the second ruler member to Akim Abakwa, also lost his seat. And incidentally, Pauli was the deputy opposition leader from the same family. I hope now this will not happen. And at this time of our political dispensation, for republic, brother to sister, sister to the, no, will not happen. In any case. So Pauli also lost his seat. Now, S.D. Dombo, Simon Dedon Dombo, who had this, that is, the leader, then leader of the Northern People's Party. You may recall sometime here, as stipulated, the Northern People's Party came into being as late back as 11th April 1954.
Second majority in Parliament.
Second majority in Parliament. And the leaders of this MPP, they assembled Northern People's Party. 11th April 1954, we had Chief Dombo as the chairperson. Mumuni Baumia, that is the father of Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Baumia, was the vice chair. and E.F. Deremanu, the General Secretary. So this group had the second largest number of seats, 15 to Nkrumah's 71. The NLM, National Liberation Movement of Bafose Akoto, from Kumasi had 12. The TCP, Togoland Congress Party of Senyo Gatro Anto, a.k.a. SG Anto, and Kuje Ayeke, they had 5. Then, a very interesting thing, Muslim Association Party of Alhaji Usman, endemically localized Tamale, he won a seat, and as I stipulated, the first educated, the first academic to have performed Hajj. So as I stipulated, the Hajj committee, if they are listening to us, at least there should be a special ticket of, Alhaji Usman's ticket. And I'm not saying it, Nana is saying it.
So why did Dombo not be sort of the minority leader in parliament?
Good. Chivasji Dombo, we may recall Professor Kofi Abrefa Busia was then the head of the sociology department, University of Ghana. So Professor Kofi Abrefa Busia entered parliament as the 5th territorial member of Asantema. There was no Brown Afro by that time, even though he comes from Wenchi. So, to answer your question, here was Chief Dombo, who respected so much, K. Busia, ceded his chair and invited, Kofi Abrefa Busia to quote S.D. Dombo. Professor, you were born 1931. I was born 1930. You are my senior. You are lettered. I'm not lettered. So please come and then take over.
Was it a mistake?
It was a historic mistake. And I say this emphatically, a historic mistake, in the sense that S.D. Dombo, after Busia had gone to exile, S.D. Dombo took over. But then, before then, as late back as 20th November 1956, he had myopically, quote and unquote, my own word, followed certain disgruntled, politicians against Nkrumah to go to, Buckingham Palace to pleadingly plead with the Queen that Mother Gold Coast was still not yet ripe for independence. So they begged. Nkrumah should not be granted. And above all, they wanted federalism. How could Almighty North be federated to an inland, Asantema, inlocked, part of Ghana? Asantema had got all the resources. Cocoa was there, gold was there, bauxite, coal, name them. And in the north, what had, S.D. Dombo and his people got? So this is why I say it was a historic mistake.
I want us to look at the difference between Nkrumah's government and Busia's government.
Good. First and foremost, Nana, before, I would like to beg your permission. Let me upstage, how Busia came in before we made the comparisons.
Sure.
If you look at a paper, in fact, I happen to have been opportune to have read a paper, an Ivorian paper, Le Fraternité Matin, that is in Côte d'Ivoire. As I stipulated, 23rd July 1990, I was opportune to have been a special visitor to the late Felix Sofo-Bonye, because among the 32 international biographers, I'm one of them. My book titled Felix Sofo-Bonye and World Peace, Which Way Forward. I met Hofui, handed over the book to him. And there, through our conversation, the late Felix Sofo-Bonye was able to show me a newspaper. That is Fraternité Matin. Because I asked I evoke the question. What relationship had he got with Busia? Because Busia, talked so good about Côte d'Ivoire. And when he was going exile, 59, he passed through Côte d'Ivoire. Nana, I mean, you always quote and unquote to bully you, the French, the little French. I know. Here, Fraternité Martin, put it. Ipso facto, front page. Busia giving, Professor Busia advancing the reasons of leaving Ghana and asking Ofoe to grant him, asylum. And it goes thus. Mon cher président, permettez-moi de vous dire que je suis ici en Côte d'Ivoire parce qu'on m'a fait avoir que quoi qu'il en soit, advienne que pourra, le président Nkrumah m'arrêtera. C'est pour cela que je suis venu ici à Abidjan. That was on the 15th of October, 1959. Front page. Let me paraphrase it. Your Excellency, Mr. President, I am here in Côte d'Ivoire to solicit your being, that is, your well-being. Please grant me exile because I have been informed that if I don't leave, Nkrumah will be arresting me. That is why I am here. Grant me asylum. Quote and unquote. Professor K. Busia, 15th October, 1970. 15th October, 1959. So here, Professor Abrefa Busia left Ghana, 59. And from 59 to 66, who was in charge of the opposition? It was no other person than Chief S.D. Dombo. And then, let me, as usual, intellectualize some assault here. If September 1962, there were only 8 members of the opposition UP on the UP benches in Parliament. And you could count them. Bukari Pegla Adama, otherwise known as BK Adama, was on the seat. He had never ever gone to exile, nor had he ever visited in Sawan. SD Domo was there, Jato Kaleo was there, lawyer Abai Fakabo was there. Abai Fakabo, a very intellectualized lawyer, very humanist. And he related to anyone. So among the northern pioneers, I raised my hand for lawyer Abai Fakabo. So here, Busia had left. He was in exile. He taught here and there. And Busia cannot be counted as someone who is a Pan-Ghanaian nationalist.
Why?
With due respect to the senior prof. With due respect to the senior prof and my former prime minister. Busia went around, told all sorts of untruths about Ghana. And this is why I said here some time ago, that was our last, that Justice Dr. Edward Akufo-Addo was entirely different than the rest of the UP. Akufo-Addo was a Pan-Ghanaian nationalist, was intellectualized, and did not know any evil. His yes was yes. Unlike majority of the UP, they said certain things which were not, actually, nationalistic. So coming back to Professor Busia, Busia was handed this thing in a silver platter. Why? Because when the coup d'etat happened, he was invited. He came in, even though they were, can you imagine? When Busia was invited, it was Justice Dr. Edward Akufo-Addo who was at the head of the Political Planning Commission, October 1966. Afrifa and Kotoka solicited that Justice Edward Akufo-Addo said his chair to Busia. Busia used this platform and created something he named Center for Civic Education. And that was how he started organizing his political party. And why a silver platter? The elections which came on 29th August 1969, 5 political parties were legalized. Here was the PPP, that is the Progress Party of Professor K. Busia. Here was National Alliance of Liberals, Bedema, Komla Agbele, Bedema, Ababasi, Dr. Bannerman, then Dr. de Graaf Johnson, and PAP, the People's Action Party. These were the political parties registered. Again, within the spirit of the 1969 Constitution, no person, no politician who was identified to have been an associate or a card-bearing member of the CPP was entirely disqualified to stand in elections. No one could mention the word CPP. No one could hold Nkrumah's effigy, be it a passport size photo, or mention even the name Nkrumah. Only at the ground, we will say showboy. When we say showboy, it means you are referring to Nkrumah. You will not be arrested. So, 29th August 1969 elections, no CPP contested. 146, PP won 105 seats. Bedema won 29 seats. Good. 7th September 1969, front page, Daily Graphic. Bedema complained that there had been some underground doings against his party and his party Aparashiki. So he was not happy. Something interesting. Bedema, who was also, in exile, with most of the UP, Aparashiki, quote and unquote, sold Nkrumah out. Because, don't forget, Bedema himself was the substantive Minister of Finance. And he was alleged he had, corrupted himself. So he was afraid of being arrested. He went into self-exile. Now, Bedema even though he won the Keta seat, but a PP, that the Progress Party, candidate of Keta, by name A.W. Awuno, not our late Professor Awuno, a different Awuno, took Bedema to court. That via the fiat and instrumentality of the 1969 Constitution, Bedema was not qualified to be in Parliament because a Nijagi committee, which investigated former ministers, Bedema was found wanting to have overspent his, personal money, and so he was not qualified. So even though he had won over 10,000 seats as against under 1,000, 10,000 votes as against under 1,000 votes polled by A.W. Awuno, he was ostracized from Parliament. So Dr. Agama had to take over the leadership of NAL. And a silver platter again, in the sense that everything, quote and unquote, was cooked for Busia. Now, here, before I compare Nkrumah's regime today, here again, the type of regime we had was not presidentialism, but was the Westminster type of democracy. Westminster in the sense that we had a vibrant prime minister as the head of the, political apparatchiki, and a non-executive president. And the non-executive president was in the name of Justice Edward Akufo-Addo. That is our current president's father. But even though the elections went on 29th August 69, the Prime Minister Busia was sworn in with his ministers 3rd September 1969. But Justice Edward Akufo-Addo could not take his seat. Why? Just like how we saw recently 2012 general elections. President Mahama being sent to court by the then candidate Nana Akufo-Addo. So also Justice Edward Akufo-Addo was sent to court. But one Dr. I.B. Ajayi. Dr. I.B. Ajayi contested the elections, that is, the presidential elections, by camera with Justice Akufo-Addo. And Justice Akufo-Addo was declared the winner. Dr. I.B. Ajayi said no, there were some wrongdoings. So his lawyer, the late Joe Appiah, who by then was the president of the Ghana Bar Association, took the matter to court. And unfortunately, Joe Appiah lost the case. So Dr. I.B. Ajayi was ostracized, and Justice Akufo-Addo was sworn in as a substantive, president. So even though Prime Minister Professor Kofi Busia was sworn in 3rd September, he could not take his seat until 1st October 1970.
Let's hold on there to 1st October 1970. And then when we come back, we'll look at the differences between the Nkrumah administration and the Busia administration and its following on. We are coming all the way back to today's presidency, or if I may say, the 4th Republic. It's exciting, more to come. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. I'm sure you're all relaxed and enjoying history. And we're going on. There's so much more to come. And we are looking at the differences between Nkrumah and Busia. Foreign policy, what are the main differences? Economy, how to run the state. What were the differences between how Nkrumah ran the state and it was so appalled? Busia also ran it. The military was so appalled. I mean, who was to please who?
Thank you very much, Nana. Here, when we talk Nkrumah, or the rule of Kwame Nkrumah, for that short period, 1957-66, mind you, many a Ghanaian academic and a media personality will say, oh, after all, Nkrumah won the elections in February 1951, so Nkrumah was there. No. Nkrumah, by that period, 51 up to 57, had not got the order of jurisprudence, in the sense that he was not at the apex of the national bureaucracy. The Governor General was there, first Sir Noble Aden Clark, up to Sir Lord Listowel. They were there. Nkrumah could not sign any decree. He was only leader of government business. So, here, when we talk of Nkrumah, Nkrumah's achievement for this, 7 years or so, is huge. Is huge, cannot be quantified. Why do I say so? Take the case of the maiden statement of Kwame Nkrumah. The independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa. What does it mean? Today, the South Africans, we assisted in helping vis-a-vis apartheid. They are now today molesting Africans because the leaders who were there or people who were around to have experienced this will not tell the youth of today, this is how we came to governance. Now, I'm not here to make a comparative political analysis between Nkrumah's, political journey and that is political sejour and that of Nkrumah's sejour. But one thing is pertinent. What was their basic African foreign policies? Since independence, the basic African foreign policy, Nana, permit me to opportunity here as a former diplomat. The African foreign policy of Madagascar is nothing other than Pan-Africanism. Why Black Star Square, Black Star Football, this, that. Nkrumah took this inspiration from the works of Marcus Garvey. That is one of the vanguards of Pan-Africanism. As late back as 1991, Marcus Garvey built his Black Star ship to convey African Americans to this. And Nkrumah, if you look at Nkrumah's book, all Nkrumah's books, Nkrumah had acknowledged Marcus Garvey. Now, how had the African foreign policy of Professor Kofi Abarefa Busia been jaundiced? In fact, by my writing, I would wish to say candidly, that the foreign policy of Professor Kofi Abarefa Busia was indeed Kwashiorkor. Kwashiorkor in the sense that at this time of apartheid of South Africa, Ghana was gingerly involved in embracing South Africa, to the chagrin, to the annoyance of all members of the OAU by that time, when Ghana was a vanguard of the Pan-African, safari. So this was one of the, the mistakes. Again, Busia's foreign policy was the so-called Alliance Compliance Order. This thing had been in the books. Nkrumah saw it, left it. The colonial administration saw it. That is more or less like the indigenization of Ghanaian business expertise. But Busia brought it and rather turned everything down. All West Africans, all Africans working in Ghana without requisite papers should leave. More than 1 million people left. And Nana, permit me to tell you of my experiences. 81, I was in Nigeria as a lecturer. 83, I was in Nigeria as a lecturer. What did we experience? Shehu Shagari chased away Ghanaians. Luckily, now we those who were lecturing in the universities were not affected. 83, Muhammad Buhari, who is now President Buhari, did worse things than that to Ghanaians. So here you could see that we had erred. The Pan-Africanists, as we claim, we do not, exercise this accord. And Nkrumah, different in the sense that Nkrumah was gingerly died in the Kente with Pan-Africanism. He was a Pan-Africanist par excellence.
You think at that time Nkrumah would not have associated with South Africa at the time?
Not at all. Nkrumah was still around. He hated South Africa. That's why he brought people like Mandela, people like, Sitoli, and to Ghana. Where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is located, that was the International Students' Hostel. Mugabe and the rest were there. Mugabe later on went to Tekoradi to teach as a...
Why did Busia then associate himself with...
This was the pressure, trying to play the card of the Western world. Trying to play the card of the Western world. And in any case, just like how today, what are we seeing with the High Commission of London? The High Commission of... We should not, and I take this opportunity as a former Ghanaian diplomat and someone who knows Ghana very well in Paris, to forewarn that Ghana, at least, should not Londonize or Britannize our foreign policy. Busia, who was the darling boy of the Western world, For instance, for Britain, the coup d'etat of Achampong came 1771. London could not bail Busia out. Because by that time, Ghanaians are not aware that the United Kingdom was with cap in hand going to IMF. 1970. Quote me. Nana. UK was with cap in hand going to IMF. How could they bail Busia out? And today, yes, we are in solidarity vis-à-vis aid with NATO or European Union. But as a sovereign country, within the limits, the fiat and instrumentality of the Geneva Accord, the Geneva Protocol, as a High Commissioner and Ambassador, the right to tell Mother Ghana, Republican Ghana, what the president should do with the Electoral Commission, with how to vote, how to set up our constitution. I say, yet, in Yilzia, no.
Prof, we're looking at Pan-Africanism, and I'm sure those who are the Nkrumah, Busia, Dombo tradition today would say that they were also African lovers, and they may disagree with you that Busia is not an Africanist.
If you should ask me, I should ask me, Nana. Maybe if I may reword this thing there. UP tradition, are they Pan-Africanist? The other tradition, are they Pan-Africanist? I will say there are many Pan-Africanists in the UP tradition. Ghanaians may not be aware. Nana, our current president, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is a Pan-Africanist. J.B. Dankwa was a Pan-Africanist. And I will tell you something, Nana. Within the limits of historical antecedents, as late back as 3rd October 1935, when Benito Mussolini invaded then Abyssinia, J.B. Dankwa, with Tufohini Moore and lawyer R.S. Bley, with placards in left and right, London, inscribed Gold Coast Pan-Africanists in solidarity with Abyssinia against Mussolini. Those who may wish to disagree to agree with my presentation or my assertion should look out for the Pan-African movement. Emmanuel Guest, London, 1974, page 121125. Again, those who know Nana from Legon and from Sorbonne in France, Nana was a CPPist. Victor Ousu was a CPPist. Saki Sheikh, then MP of Takoradi and cross carpet to UP, was a CPPist. Name them. So, for people to say that, oh, once you are a property owner, your philosophy is vis-a-vis property owning democracy, you are not a Pan-African. Who is a Pan-Africanist? Pan-Africanist or Pan-Africanism, a Pan-Africanist is someone who is gingerly poised to see to it that Mother Africa and the African is totally liberated, politico-economically, culturally, artistically, and otherwise, from the so-called dominant free world. And that's the Western world. And their oligarchies. Which are these oligarchies? Every Ghanaian would like to be liberated from IMF. Every Ghanaian or African would like to be liberated from the World Bank oligarchies. Will you tell me, Nana, with due respect, that our president, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa, will not wish, by December as we are told, we are completely divorced from IMF. Who would like to be associated with IMF? Who would like to be associated with World Bank? So that when they give you this, craps, they will come back to tell you that, oh, please, This is how you should choose your chairman of the electoral commission. This is what you should do. This school masters and school children. We say 9 as a Pan-Africanist.
Because of timing, we'll cut and then we'll slip into next, because now we need to look at Liman's regime, how it started, how it failed, probably sum up how it is that Busia's regime also failed, and then work our way onwards to the third, well, that will be the third, so work our way up to the Fourth Republic. There is so much to talk about. And this episode is coming to an end here. But don't worry, we still have the prof to lecture us more. And I would say thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to you at home for also watching and being part and throwing in your contributions. But on the next episode, we are looking at more exciting stuff, working our way into the Fourth Republic. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next time, have a nice day.